victory splintered the GOP, and it was clear after celebrated Pulitzer Prize-winning commentator George Will left the Republican Party in 2016, and he's written a new book to remind people why our founding fathers' conservative ideals matter more now than ever. Please welcome author of The Conservative Sensibility, George Will. Hello. So you go first.
Well, I want to know what you dream about, George. We were talking about dreams. I dream I'm naked. Do you?
I dream about being on The View.
You do?
Oh.
But do you have these stress dreams like
Yes.
we had? You
Yeah.
do too.
I've left my bags on Amtrak. Things like
yeah.
It's very
Things
tame.
like that. And also missing a math class.
Yes.
Yeah.
Again, with the dream you had, I didn't take enough courses.
Even Pulitzer Prize winners still.
Donald Trump is president,
Yes.
folks. The woke hours are stressful.
Yes, I know. I know.
That's true.
We don't need stress dreams.
Well, Mr. Will, you are an extremely well-respected conservative commentator, and in 2016 you decided to leave the Republican Party over Trump. Shortly after that, Fox News chose not to renew your contract, and you've described the Republican Party as, quote, a cult of Trump. Do you worry that the party is forever changed?
4 years is a mishap, an episode. 8 years would be a pattern. And I think after 8 years it would be very hard for the party to snap back to anything resembling Goldwater Reagan republicanism.
Oh, it's depressing.
Yep.
You know, the Trump party seems to be in what they call like a white panic, that the demographics are changing so rapidly that white people are going to disappear or something. And they're in this panic state, I think. And do you think that the Republican Party will disappear and become extinct like the Whig Party eventually? And their concerns, are you in agreement with that?
Back in the day when we used to worry about nuclear weapons, the experts said that cockroaches would survive nuclear war because they're such simple mechanisms.
Yeah.
Our political parties are like cockroaches. They're very simple. They're market mechanisms. They'll adapt. They won't disappear, but they won't resemble anything like what we've had before.
So the Republican Party will not disappear?
I don't think so. It's very hard to get rid of these things.
Like cockroaches.
Like cockroaches.
I got
Exactly
it.
right.
So you were a very important, influential conservative Republican figure in when Bill Clinton was getting impeached. We've just seen the Mueller report. And it's been interesting to see some Republicans who were around for impeachment react very differently today, people like Lindsey Graham. How do you feel about it? What do you think would happen if the Mueller report had been about a Democratic president?
There would be howls for impeachment from the right, just as there are howls for impeachment from the left. But the people who want to impeach the president have to answer a question. Are you impeaching him for what? Something he did before, like firing the FBI director?
Yeah.
It's a clear core presidential power to replace the head of the FBI. Then you have to say, well, he's doing it for a corrupt motive.
Yeah.
To stop an investigation. He could have stopped the investigation, but he didn't. And the investigation didn't find the underlying offense of collusion. Now, you can also have impeachment prospectively to protect the country from additional harms. The problem is the harm he's doing is that he's a boor and a name caller and a liar. But we knew that on Election Day 2016. And he promised to continue being what he already was. So you can't impeach a man for keeping his promises, even if they're disgusting promises.
But it just seems to me that there was more in the Mueller report than was found against Clinton. But Clinton was impeached by the Republicans.
Yeah, I have actually read every unredacted word of the Mueller report, and it's an unsavory picture. And what the Republicans did with Clinton resulted in the remarkable perverse achievement that the Republicans managed to lose seats in the Congress in the second election, midterm election of a president. It almost never happens. The country was disgusted by the impeachment, and that's why Nancy Pelosi is the one vote that matters. She's not reluctant. It is not going to happen. There's not going to be an impeachment because she is a seasoned politician who has her eye on the prize, which is the White House down the road. She doesn't want to send a message to the Democratic base. She wants to send a president to the White House.
Your book is terrific. It's very dense. It's very thick. But reparations for African Americans, it's shaping up to be a big campaign issue in 2020. It's something that I've brought up with every single candidate that's come on our show. And Cory Booker said we must address these persistent inequalities. And in your book, where you talk about conservatives, you say they have said that they favor equality of opportunity, not equality of condition. And we know that African Americans haven't had an equality of opportunity in this country. Mitch McConnell said electing a black president, however, proved we already dealt with the sin of slavery. What are your thoughts on reparations?
First, I think you're mistaken that it will be a big political issue. I don't believe it will be. If you want to deepen the discord in America, and I think we already have quite enough discord, start trying to assign guilt across 8 generations that have passed in America since this. 3 million African Americans self-identify as mixed race. How do they figure in the reparations picture? We've had probably a majority of Americans are today living in America are descended from people who came here after the 13th Amendment was enacted. They had no connection with slavery. What do we do, by the way, about the 120,000 American residents of Japanese descent, most of them American citizens who were interned during the Second World War?
To them.
Yeah.
Very small.
Well, we did.
And then you've got the Irish who used to look for jobs, and the sign would say Irish need apply.
That's not the same thing as slavery.
It is not the same thing as slavery, but it gives you some sense of the difficulties of
But there's DNA evidence now.
And because something is difficult, does that mean we shouldn't approach it? We put men on the moon. We've solved crimes with DNA. We've done so much in this country.
Who is going
There's still disparate treatment. There's a significant wealth gap. All that people are asking for is a commission to study reparations, and there's pushback about that.
One can address the serious problem of wealth inequality without raising the issue of reparations and without making it racial, because there are an enormous number of people of all colors in this country who are poor.
How can you not make it racial if we're talking about slavery? Reparations for slavery.
What I'm suggesting is don't talk about it as a racial matter if you really want to.
Oh, George.
Well,
It's being practical.
Wait, I have one more question for you, if you don't mind. Okay, so you have warned Democrats that they must practice modesty in order to beat Trump in 2020. I say the same thing all the time. I agree with you. You're saying they are making it easy to vote for Trump. What do you think Democrats are doing wrong?
I think they think the country is angry. I don't think Americans are angry. I think the people who watch certain cable channels are angry, but that's a small slice of the country. I think most Americans are sad and embarrassed and exhausted. They're sad because they're embarrassed, and they're exhausted because of the constant embarrassment that is inflicted on them 24 hours a day by a president who never sleeps. So for that reason, it seems to me, the American people don't want transformation. They want restoration. They can get to transformation later, but they'd like a period of normality.
Well, thank you so much for coming on our show. I really appreciate you being here. George Will, his new book, The Conservative Sensibility, is available now.